Namaste and welcome everyone for today's webinar, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. We know karma is in our vocabulary, but do we really know what it means? From news reports and sitcoms, even Taylor Swift's lyrics, the word is everywhere, yet few grasp its true depth. In this session with Philip Goldberg, Sri Philji, author of Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life, we're going to go beyond the buzzword to explore karma's journey from Vedic origins to its modern interpretations in the West. It's a concept too often simplified or distorted, right? Karma offers potent medicine for our times, a way to build a fulfilling life, navigate challenges with clarity, and reconcile life's most vexing conundrums. Karmic Relief, Philji's book, reveals how understanding karma can become a path to joy, healing, and inner freedom. So it is our pleasure to have Phil Goldberg with us today. He's going to explain what karma really means, what it doesn't mean, and then show us how to apply karmically sound ethical principles to relationships, life, decisions, health, and self development. And as he writes, we're always planting karmic seeds. Our task is to choose the right seeds and plant them skillfully in the right way at the right time under the right conditions. So thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Ananji from Tampa, glad that you are here. Liz from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Sudhaji from Dallas, Texas. Sunitaji from New Jersey. Awesome to have all of you with us today. Let me now introduce our special guest, our faculty member, well-known author, Sri Philip Goldberg. He's been studying the world's spiritual traditions for more than 50 years as a practitioner, teacher, and author. He's got numerous books, including American Veda from Emerson and the Beatles to Yoga and Meditation, How Indian Spirituality Changed the West, and the life of Yogananda, the story of the yogi who became the first modern guru. Philji is also an ordained interfaith minister, a spiritual counselor, and a meditation teacher as well. He is an illuminating and entertaining public speaker who has presented at universities, religious and spiritual institutions, yoga centers, festivals, various other venues throughout the US and India, and has been on many webinars with HUA. And I'm always glad to host Philji for our audience. So, with that introduction, let me hand it to Sri Philip Goldberg to get us started on understanding karma a little bit better.
Ankarji, it's always a pleasure to be introduced by you. I wish you could introduce me everywhere I go, but it may be hard to live up to that. Uh, I suppose for this audience, um, many of whom, if not most of whom, uh, probably grew up with karma as part of the vocabulary, part of the worldview in their families. Slightly different audience than the ones I've been speaking to, like yesterday in my local library, where we had a book event. There were people for whom karma as a concept is relatively new. Um, so let me begin, I guess, by saying why I wrote this book. Um, As many of your listeners know, especially those who read American Veda or took one of my classes at HUA, discovering India's spiritual treasures when I was young, a college student, uh, was transformative in a major, significant way in my life. And has been this in integrating the Hindu teachings into my life as a modern Western person who was not born to that tradition, um, has been a major feature of my last 5 decades. And as a writer and a speaker and someone who traffics in words and ideas, I've had to translate the Vedic teachings to other Westerners, other Americans primarily, to help them integrate the teachings into their own lives and their own uh, spiritual traditions. And as part of that uh, Dharma, that my Swadharma, um, the concept of karma and the word karma has been an important common feature of the whole enterprise my whole life, my whole adult life, when I discovered it as part of the package of Vedanta mainly and yoga that I was so drawn to. Um, I struggled with what it really means and what the implications are and whether it's real because I had my doubts, as a lot of people do. And over the years, actually, this book, I had the title long before I had any idea I was going to write the book. Back in the 80s, there were a series of TV specials called Comic Relief, where comedy was used to attract viewers to raise money for charities. And so I started using the term karmic relief as just for fun. And, and at one point, I said, well, that would make a good book title, but I didn't know what the book was. And I just filed it away. And over the years, as I saw the word karma being used, as Ankur said, in sitcoms and news reports and TV commercials and brand names, karmic water, karma water, karma wheelchairs. There's all kinds of product names, brand names with karma or karmic in it. And it just became part of the vocabulary. And usually, people got that karma has something to do with, in Western language, we reap what we sow. And people would say, what goes around comes around. And they'd use karma as a sort of shorthand to indicate there was justice in the universe. And usually they misunderstood it or they oversimplified it and misconstrued the nuances and subtleties of what karma is really about. But at least they were using the term and using it to mean what we do has consequences and they'll come back to us. It's very simple understanding and not incorrect, but just very incomplete and often misused for various reasons that we can go into. And so over time, I thought, well, somebody should write a book about karma and clarify what it means and what it doesn't mean, what its implications are, why it's plausible in the first place. Um, and so as time went on, I thought, well, I should write that book, but I didn't for years. And every once in a while, my wife would say, when are you going to write that book about karma? And I thought, and she loved the title. So did my agent. Karmic Relief was the title right from the beginning. And and I kept saying, yeah, I should do that. And so eventually I accepted that it was my karma to write a book about karma and that I should do that. And so now here it is over my left shoulder on the shelf. And so that's the background. And I'm sure that many of your listeners who understand what karma is and who've incorporated an understanding of karma into how they live their lives and maybe how they uh, interact with other people, how they've raised their children and so forth, understand what I mean when they go about life in America and hear the word used and and sometimes wonder if the person really knows what it means. Uh, so that's the background, and I'm happy to, go into any aspect of it you want, Encore. So uh, maybe you could lead the discussion so I don't just blab and
Yeah. I mean, one of those things that comes up all the time is karma from the past life impacts our life today, right? Things we did then impacts us now. And sometimes that's difficult to fathom, right? Especially when you have tragedy or something that's very difficult. And like, what did I
yeah,
do to deserve this? I'm sure that's you got a whole chapter on that, right? So maybe I
well,
think that's the first thing that I think is the barrier
yeah,
for
yeah.
people for accepting. So maybe you can talk about that a
Well,
little bit.
that gets at a couple of the ways it's kind of misconstrued. Most people, casual discussions or everyday conversation, or even in the popular culture, they think of karma only when something negative happens. Some unusual event. Why is this happening to me? Or why are those people suffering? Why does this event occur? Oh, it's karma. It has to do with the past. And so we think of it almost like a form of punishment. Most of the pop songs, and there are a lot of them with the word karma in the title and karma in the lyrics. They mean it usually as like you did me wrong, and now karma's going to get you, and or I did something wrong, and whoop, look what's happening to me now. I cheated on somebody, and now look, this is coming back to me. It's usually that's the context, which leaves out the part of karma that delivers good things. Of course, if karma is true, if karma is real, if karma is what the sages and the rishis said it is, then everything that happens to us is the result of what we did in the past and how the karma of others with whom we relate all come together to create this present moment, this present situation. So all of the blessings, all of the good things we have in life, that's karma too. But people don't think of it that way. They think only of the retribution, punishment. They don't think when something good happens, when somebody does something unexpectedly nice to them, when they have a success, when they have a moment of great pleasure in life, and some of the blessings of family and security and affluence um, that we take for granted, that too is karma. Those are the what we think of as good karma. But people don't say that. They don't say, "Oh, look what karma has brought to my life. Isn't that wonderful?" They only they only blame karma for the bad things. So that's one of it. But the other piece of it is in the West especially, and I know it's not just the West, because karma has been misunderstood and uh, misconstrued everywhere, including India, in many ways. Um, but we think of it as, or many people think of it as a kind of system of reward and punishment. And most of the experts, from the ancient sages to modern scholars, academics who study what's been said and written about karma, um, and what holds up to rational analysis of life, um, would explain it not as a system of reward and punishment, as if um, moral judgments were being made by uh, a personal deity or a almighty figure, a judge, but as something more like causes and effects in the laws of nature. It's it's not just about reward and punishment. It's not just about retribution. It's about causes and effects and the way the energy of our actions, our speech, our thoughts, our interactions reverberate out into the universe and have consequences that come back to us. It's the way I like to look at it is the laws of physics include um, one of the famous maxims in physics is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And that is a known, fact that of physics apply to material objects. Karma is saying the same thing, only not restricting it to physical objects, to material objects. It applies it to our actions, and not just our actions, but our speech, our thoughts, our intentions. All that has energy, all that vibrates, and it goes out into the universe in unpredictable ways, comes back to us in some way. That's what it's, and so we then impose this is good, this is bad, this is reward, this is punishment. But the laws of karma is more akin. I rather than think of it as like a judicial system where you're being sentenced or rewarded, you think of it as a vibratory system, something more like the laws of nature. And most of the modern Hindu thinkers, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, and others, have what some scholars have called an evolutionary model of karma, where the entire purpose of the laws of karma is it's an educational model. So we're presented with the effects of our past action in the moment to learn lessons, to learn from what happens to us, the good and the bad, the pleasures and the pains. But since we mostly are up, think of karma when unwanted things happen to us, to think of those as lessons as part of our curriculum as um, incarnated beings in human form to learn and to grow and to develop spiritually and to become better humans as we go along. And in so doing, change the patterns of our karma for the better. It's a system that puts personal responsibility and free will in the center of things. It's not fatalism. It's not determinism. It's a it's a system of that frees us from, if we learn the right lessons and engage in spiritual growth. Karma is there to teach us and set us on the path to growth and development and increasing enlightenment and awakening toward moksha. And that's liberating. Karma is not a constrictive thing. It's a liberating thing if we understand it properly. Excuse me. Hmm. So that's part of the picture, Ankur. I forgot what your original question was.
No, that was it. And I always love how you elaborate and get into questions that I was going to ask. Chanel Monique, glad to have you on, I think from Los Angeles, Whittier. Chanel Monique is saying karma seems to be like soil, an indiscriminate inherent action or activator that's triggered by a stimulus in and upon energy and matter. Interesting little take. What do you
I
think?
like that. That makes sense to me. But it to me, the critical thing is to, for people who are curious about it, um, because it's, to be honest, if we could just step back for a moment. I had to say yesterday when I gave this talk that because there were friends of mine there who were very skeptical about the whole notion of karma, and that there's very good reason to be. I'm not here to persuade people that karma is real. I struggled with it myself for many years because if you look at the evidence on the surface, it doesn't seem that we always reap what we sow. Sometimes it's obvious that we are, but sometimes if you look at the world, um, you see good, righteous, wonderful human beings who suffer, who get sick, who are innocent, who've done no wrong that we can see, and and yet they suffer and they have illness and they have discontent and poverty and early death and all that sort of thing. And you see people who are so clearly, if not evil, then greedy and cruel and selfish and all the things we don't want our children to be, who seem to prosper and they get along well and they live long lives. And it's hard to reconcile that with a system that says every action has consequences and will come back to us. In the more, if we look at it as a moral and ethical system. And so that's where reincarnation comes in, among other things, because there are people. Let me step back one more way. One of the things that I was surprised to discover when I researched karmic relief was there are many schools of thought about these nuances of karma, um, both within Hinduism and within Buddhism and Jainism as well. Not everybody's in total agreement about these subtleties and details, which makes it very interesting. There are even people who will uh, have rational ways of explaining karma without reincarnation. That's is a little too tortured for me. Because, if you don't have that multi-life framework, then it's very hard to accept that karmic law is going to make sure everything is fair and equitable in the long run, and that we really do reap what we sow. We have multiple lives to get it right. And that helps explain why some people are born to misfortune and some people are born to comfort and ease and so forth, and health. Um, and why some people are born with gifts that become, Mozart or whatever, and some people are not. Uh, So reincarnation seems to me to be built in to an understanding of karma. Uh, but at the same time, it's very easy to see why people would be skeptical about it. And we have not yet progressed to the point where we can prove it scientifically. Science has evolved, quantum physics especially, to the point where it becomes more and more plausible. So people know that science has demonstrated without doubt that everything in the universe is connected and that everything is energy and vibration. That makes understanding and accepting the possibility that karma is real much easier, but it's not yet proven, certainly. And it's not always obvious that we are in the moment reaping the rewards. And see, even I say rewards and punishment, reaping the consequences of past actions. And it's not always obvious that what we do now will eventually come back to us. But having said that, there are implications if you even entertain the possibility that karma is real. And that's who I aimed my book at. People who um, are willing to take the leap of faith, as I have, that and proceed in life on the assumption that the laws of karma are in effect, or even willing to entertain the possibility. Because if karma is real, it has great implications for how we live our lives. And it's much more complicated than we realize it is. That's another thing I discovered in writing and researching the book. So,
Great. Yeah, we had quite a few people join us. We have some questions in the Q&A box, but
good.
Philji, just from that basic level, laws of karma, the law of karma, how do you put it into a concise kind of explanation?
Yeah. That's where the cliches like you reap what we sow and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. They're actually pretty good summaries. It's good shorthand for what karma is. But if you don't understand all the nuances, for example, just the very simple thing, um, you think of behaving in an ethical and moral way. Do the right thing, don't do the wrong thing. That's simple. Or as I joke, my grandmother used to say, just be nice. So, be nice, be good. Okay, but what in our complicated lives is the right thing to do and is not always so obvious? And most of the decisions we make in our lives, the little choices we make as we go through our day-to-day lives, we don't take the time to think things through. We just are spontaneously and intuitively acting and reacting to what life presents to us. Often we do rationally consider major decisions, but most of the time we're going through lives in an intuitive way. And then when you look at the what we think of as the ethical guidelines in the traditions, mainly Hinduism and Buddhism, where karma is built into the package, they're different from the ethical systems the West is used to. Like somebody once said to me, "Oh, the yamas and niyamas are the Ten Commandments of Hinduism because there are 10 of them." But if you look at the Ten Commandments, it's like, do this, don't do this, or you'll be punished and God will, exercise his wrath. They're commands. The yamas and the niyamas, like the paramitas in Buddhism, they're not commandments. They're guidelines. They're presented as suggestions, recommendations. Behave this way. Cultivate these traits in yourself, and your life will be better. You will grow toward spiritual liberation faster. Take this advice. Be smart. It's not commanding, and there's not punishment involved in the same sense.
Yeah. Uh,
So looking at these systems is, you know, offers tremendous guidelines for how we live our lives, and they're often ignored, but they're essentially blueprints for being better equipped to handle when unwanted karma shows up in our lives, and better equipped to behave and think and speak in ways that reset our sort of internal guidance system, the GPS within us, so that right action becomes the default setting, as opposed to, something we have to think about all the time.
Yeah, very nice. And actually, on one of the points, Ramki Krishnan is saying maybe it's not an opposite reaction, right? There's a equal reaction. Maybe it's piecemeal, but it doesn't necessarily need to be an opposite reaction. What do you think about that?
Well, in classical physics, the opposite just is about the direction. You know, something goes this way, then there's a reverberation back. So in that sense, it's opposite in that we say and do things that go out. The opposite is it comes back to us. It
Mm,
does. It's not a value. In fact, in people who comment, write about karma and discourse about karma will say um, what comes back is in like form as to what we put out. The opposite is just about the direction of the motion of the energy.
yeah. Ike Oza from Los Angeles, glad to have you with us. Renu Kulkarni and Kumu Gupta are asking kind of similar questions, and you touched on it in terms of reincarnation. Renuji is asking, how is karma of this life carried through death? How does it know where to go? That was kind of the interesting. How does it know where to go? And then Kumuji is asking, is it predicated on believing in God?
Uh, how does it know? Well, that depends on what it is, I guess. You know, there are phenomena in physics like quantum entanglement, where things that happen on the subatomic level have effects across the universe. What Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. You could say, how does the electron know? And that's, kind of attributing human-like intelligence to these things. These are systems of nature that, you know, go beyond what we think of as knowing. It's like, how does the apple know that it'll fall from the tree? Does it know? Karma, I'm certainly not in a position of saying, how does it know? I don't even know what it is. It just is.
And so that idea of did matter come first or did consciousness come first, right? Which way did that order happen, right? In the Hindu thought, in our right, consciousness predates matter, and in
Yes.
Western thought, it's they're trying to figure out how matter leads to consciousness.
And they probably will never figure it out. And but what's interesting about that is that you could say the karma of the West is with every new discovery and every um, seminar and every conference about consciousness for the decades I've been sort of on the outside looking into how neuroscientists and philosophers address these issues. Every step of the way moves more and more toward more of them being open to the possibility that consciousness exists independent of the neurological or brain activity, that consciousness precedes matter, and consciousness gives rise to matter. Consciousness gives rise to what we think of as thought. The brain doesn't create consciousness, but is a processor. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know the details, but every step of the way, the model of in those scientific fields comes to resemble Hindu and Buddhist thought uh, more and more. And so it would not shock me if one day something like the laws of karma are articulated in some neuroscience or physical uh, laws of physics or something. Maybe it will require another lifetime or two for us to witness that, but it's moving and it moves in that direction. What was the second? There was another question in there.
Uh, Kind of who's keeping track of it also, right? Do you have to
Yeah.
believe in
Oh, the
God? Is
day.
that just
Yeah.
part of it,
You know
or
what shocked me? Um, because the way I learned about karma was through the thinkers who presented in a non-theistic way as akin to or analogous to laws of physics and so forth, and who think of it as a system of, you know, energy and moving in certain directions, and as opposed to deities being in charge of distributing karma and making judgments. But one of the interesting things is there are schools of Hinduism that um, attribute the processing of karma to a supreme being, or maybe committees of devas and devis. I didn't expect that. But as most of our listeners know, Hinduism is a very diverse, uh, I don't even like using the term religion, but what we call Hinduism is extremely diverse. And there's a lot of different schools of thought. And so, as far as I'm concerned, no, it does not require a belief in a personal God or a God with form. Um, Perfectly understandable within the notion of divinity being formless. But if you take Vedanta seriously, you know that divinity is both transcendent and immanent, and it does not rule out the presence of devas. And so you could interpret it that way. Um, to me, what matters is understanding karma and taking it seriously is a very practical matter. It's life changing. And and you know, using that's why the subtitle of my book, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect. If you I know from my own experience and so many of my fellow travelers in the West, if I assume that karma is real and that everything I do has consequences that are going to affect not just my loved ones, but others, and also come back to me, I'm far more likely to behave well. I'm far more likely to consider my choices a little more carefully, to make sure I do the right thing, even if no one knows it, right? Because, it's like little kids. You tell them, well, Santa Claus knows if you've been naughty or nice. So if you're thinking, well, the laws of karma could be in operation here, so I'm going to do the right thing. That you lean in the direction of doing the kind thing, the generous thing, the the righteous thing, as opposed to the selfish or mean or revengeful thing. Uh, I'm going to lean in that direction. And so, I like to think if more and more people would at least entertain the possibility that karma could be real, they'll behave better. It's not a guarantee by any means, because, we're human, but it improves the odds, so to speak. And the other thing I want to say about all these, questions about how it works and, can it be proved and all that, I don't know if they're answerable. And one of the teachings that meant a lot to me early on, um, when I was reading the Gita, or for the first, I've read 15 different translations over the years and studied it. But one of the early insights is where Krishna tells Arjuna that the course of karma, the course of action, is unfathomable. And the interpretations of that I cling to and that made a difference in my life suggest that karma karma can be very simple in certain ways. You insult somebody and they're going to insult you back. You do something kind, people will be kind to you. Some things are obvious. You run a red light and then you crash. There's cause and effect and sort of instant karma. But the package of karma through all of our actions over the course of time and our interactions gets very complicated. And so complex that we cannot understand or comprehend what in the past has caused whatever is going on in the present. Our human minds cannot comprehend it. And so to say, for example, um, something was stolen from me, oh, I must have stolen something in the past, and now it's coming back to me. Or I must have been a thief in my past life. um, is foolish speculation because karma is much more complicated than that. I use the word unfathomable. Some translations say impossible to understand or difficult to comprehend. And so speculation is kind of discouraged by all the gurus, uh, even to the point of speculating about past lives, past actions. It's enough to know that some constellation of actions in the past have led to this situation in the present. And in this present moment, how I respond to it is up to me. If I respond to an unwanted bit of karma in the same way I always have, it may come back and happen again. But if I respond in a better way, if I think more clearly, if I change my behavior slightly, if I respond in a more ethical and moral way in the present, I am then creating different karma going forward. I am learning the lesson that this little bit of my curriculum has presented to me. And so that gives us the freedom to readjust our karmic patterns and make more desirable karmic effects occur in the future. It doesn't, the understanding or the speculation about the past has only, kind of limited value.
Yeah. Ikshwaku ji is bringing up the kind of three kinds of karma, the general way that we talk about them, where they're described, right? Sanchita karma, kind of the accumulated karma. How do you say it? Karma,
Yeah, yeah,
manifested
yeah,
karma,
yeah.
Agami or Kriyamana karma. You've already talked about these in their kind of in their how they manifest, but maybe if you could talk about those three in particular and how they inter and the language behind them.
Well, I don't want to belabor, the details, but there's the karma, I'm terrible at remembering Sanskrit words, but most of the systems have these three kinds of karma. The karma from past lives that is due to fructify, to come to ripen in the present. There's the karma from earlier in this life that may or may not come to fruition in this life, but will. And there's the karma we're creating right now that will fructify in the present. I think I got those three right. Um, but the main thing is we're in the present. And if we live a good life, if we behave ethically, if we do the right thing, if we're virtuous, and if we cultivate our deepest spiritual aspect of our lives, this is, this is one of the important things. When you look at how karma is understood, and you look at the different at things like the koshas and the levels at which the layers of human life, it's not just our behavior. This is very clear. It's not just the actions we take. It's our intentions, our motivations, our attitudes, our personal character that gives rise to our speech and our actions. We're built in layers. And at the deepest level, where consciousness arises, at the deepest level of our spiritual being, at Atman level that transcends karma, that is beyond the laws of cause and effect. The more we cultivate that divinity within ourselves, the more that we live that Upanishadic, thou art that, tattvam asi, and engage in sadhana, then we reset our karmic uh, balance sheet, so to speak, and we neutralize the impact of the past. We cleanse the samskaras and the impressions of the past that create conditioned actions in the present, and have a more clean slate going forward. So to me, sadhana and all the repertoire of yoga and deep meditation, that's fundamental to dealing, to improving our karma, to being able to uh, neutralize the effect of unwanted karma when it comes to us, and to behave in ways that are aligned with um, the divine will, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
nice.
we're attuned to what's right and what's wrong intuitively. So if you look at the yamas and niyamas and other and the Yoga Sutras and all the systems that tell us how to behave in the world, they don't just say do this, don't do that. They say cultivate these qualities, cultivate serenity, cultivate kindness, cultivate the best in us, attune ourselves to the divine the will, so to speak, the laws, the way the universe is operating, moving toward righteousness and goodness. We become better human beings by going deep within ourselves and bringing out those deepest, most divine qualities. And so it's not just a question of behavior, which is important. And, do the right thing is important. Be nice, as my grandmother said. But life gets complicated, and we have needs and desires, and responsibilities. And it's not always clear what the exact right thing is in the moment. But the more we're attuned to the direction of the divine pattern of life, the more it becomes automatic. And that's, I think, the goal, to make goodness our default setting.
Nice. Yeah, you definitely touched on Sandeep G's questions about can neutralizing past karma, regardless if it's good or bad. You already hit on that. Andreas, yeah, we'll be sending the recording of this webinar to everyone who registered. If you don't get it, just send me a message. John, Shri is just like an honorific, Mr. or a little bit of respect, so that goes sometimes before the
Yes.
name. Srimati for a married woman, Sushri for a Mrs. or a Miss. Yeah, thank you, John, for asking. Chanel has another interesting question on is there consideration for ancestral karma? How does that all
Yeah.
come together?
Yeah, that's one of the
Sean,
ways it
take it
gets
away.
complicated. And there's a whole thing about collective karma, group karma. I had to address that in the last chapter of the book. And I talked to, experts, scholars, and more has been written by academics and Indian and Western about karma than I realized, and I had to wade through a lot of dense writing from academic, but there's not in uniform agreement about these things. There's different schools of thought. Some schools of thought, are that, you can't be collective karma because karma has to do with is caused by volition, and groups don't have volition. Only individuals have volition. But then at the same time, you know that things happen to groups, and groups make decisions. Families make decisions. Communities make decisions. We have elections. The national karma, leadership, all these things come together and we're all affected by them. So there must be something like collective karma. And there's obviously something like ancestral karma, because, even if you just think of it biologically, you know, we're DNA. I have my grandparents, DNA, and so there must be on a karmic level, we inherit things and we're part of groupings. And it gets very complicated. And, you can analyze this if you wish, but there's no easy answer to that. But obviously, all of our individual actions from past lives interact with those closest to us. And we inherit things that we may have helped create in the past. So you can only really look at the present and know. Somebody said, if you want to know your past lives, look at your present life. If you want to predict your future life, look at your present life.
Mm.
Because here we are, and this is what we have to work with.
Nice. And I love working with you, Philji. We are near the top of the hour. We have just maybe one or two more questions. Let me launch this poll. Uh, Maybe you're interested in taking one of the several courses Philji teaches at HUA. He teaches across the universe, Hindu Dharma and Western creative arts. That's a cool one.
That's a fun one.
An immersive exploration of the iconic autobiography of a yogi, gurus in America, the incredible impact of India's dharmic ambassadors, how Hindu Dharma transformed America. Maybe we club those and rename one of those courses. And then maybe we can also teach a class. Philji can teach a class, have a class on karmic relief itself
Oh,
as well.
okay, good. Yeah, I would like that. I see it's on the list here. I didn't know that it
Yeah.
was even being considered. Sure,
I'm
why not?
considering it, and then we'll talk to Kalyanji. And if you're willing to
Okay.
do it, I think, and if we have audience, yes, then we will definitely do it. We also
Okay.
purchased a box of books that Phil has, and we like
Yeah.
to, if you're interested, let us know, and we'll get those to you. We'll figure out some sort of agreement, and yeah, distribute this book, get it out there, make that karmic ripple effect,
Yes.
one book at a time, maybe.
My karma is in your hands.
Really good. Really good. All right. We are just at the top of the hour. I think we went through all the questions. Always my pleasure to host. What a great conversation. This is one of those topics, as a Hindu growing up in America, we hear this word and we don't know what it means. And then we get confused and really appreciate you writing a whole book on it. I'm going to have to pick up a copy. This conversation was great. Philji, let me give it to you for some closing thoughts.
Yeah,
Any chance?
there's still so much about karma that we didn't go into, but I would invite people. I've been writing on Substack on this and other related matters. And my Substack is called Practical Spirituality. So I'd welcome you to subscribe and, give me your comments on whatever I post. And I should let people know about my podcast, Spirit Matters, where I interview spiritual teachers and leaders from all different traditions, some of whom I'm sure you know. Uh, so that's there. And I would invite everybody to stay in touch with me, either through my Substack or my website, which is just my name.com, philipgoldberg.com. And that's because I'd love to hear from from all of you, and especially about the book and karma, and, because I'm learning things all the time that I wish I knew when I was writing the thing. And it's a deep and important topic that I think justifies ongoing conversation.
Awesome. I've shared the links to the Spirit Matters Talk, your website,
Oh,
and
good.
the Substack. Please do check that out. Maria says she just finished reading the book on Kindle. It is well worth the read. Wonderful that HUA is helping to get the word out about it. Yes, we are glad that Phil G has published a new book. We're glad to give you the platform to talk about it and maybe even teach a course on it. Amazing. Phil
Yeah,
G, it is always a pleasure to have you on. And we'll do this again, I'm sure soon enough.
I'm sure we will, Ankur. It's always a pleasure, and I really appreciate your having me on again.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will see you next time. Again, Philji, thank you so much. Appreciate you, sir.
Namaste, everyone.